Something happened in the Persian Gulf that most mainstream outlets buried in the back pages. And if you have not heard about it yet, you need to stop whatever you're doing right now. Because what is unfolding in the waters off Iran's coast could reshape the entire balance of power in the Middle East and send shockwaves through global energy markets in ways that will affect every single person watching this video. A strike on Kharg Island, one of the most strategically critical pieces of land on the entire planet, was not just an attack on Iranian infrastructure. It was a message. And what Iran did next, the warning it sent back to the world, was not the kind of response you ignore. Analysts are calling it a calculated signal, a deliberate escalation in diplomatic and military posture that suggests Tehran has decided the rules of engagement have fundamentally changed. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, and why the entire world should be paying very close attention right now. Before we go any further, if you are new to this channel, welcome to War Alert 24, where we break down global conflicts, military strategy, and geopolitical developments with the depth and seriousness they deserve. Hit that like button right now if you want more content like this, and subscribe so you never miss an analysis when the world is moving fast. We cover the stories that matter, and right now, this one matters more than most. To understand what is happening today, you have to understand what Kharg Island actually is, because without that context, the significance of a strike there simply does not register the way it should. Kharg Island, located in the northeastern Persian Gulf, about 25 kilometers off the Iranian coast, is the nerve center of Iran's entire oil export operation. Approximately 90% of Iran's crude oil exports pass through this single island. It is home to massive oil terminals, pumping stations, loading facilities, and storage infrastructure that represents decades of construction and investment. When oil tankers from Asia, Europe, and beyond need Iranian crude, they come to Kharg. It is not just important to Iran. It is a critical node in the global oil supply chain, and any serious damage to its infrastructure sends immediate tremors through international energy markets. Iran built this island into an economic fortress for good reason. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, Iraqi forces conducted repeated aerial strikes on Kharg Island in an attempt to strangle Iran's oil revenues and cripple its ability to fund the war effort. Iran rebuilt, adapted, and defended the island with fierce determination. The lesson Tehran took from that period was simple and brutal. Kharg Island is the jugular vein of the Iranian economy, and protecting it is not optional. So when reports emerged of a significant strike targeting Kharg Island's facilities, the reaction inside Iran was not just military, it was existential in tone. The details surrounding the strike itself remain a subject of active analysis and competing claims, as is typical in the fog of operations in this volatile region. What became clear in the aftermath, through Iranian state media statements, military communiques, and the observable responses of regional actors, was that Iran viewed the strike as a deliberate act of aggression against its sovereign economic infrastructure. Iranian officials were quick to characterize the attack not as an isolated incident, but as part of what they described as a coordinated campaign of pressure designed to bring Tehran to its knees economically and politically. Whether or not the framing is entirely accurate, it reveals something very important about how Iranian leadership is interpreting the current security environment and how that interpretation is shaping their response calculus. Iran's warning to the world that followed the strike came on multiple levels simultaneously, and that layered nature is precisely what makes it so significant and so worth dissecting carefully. On the diplomatic front, Iranian officials delivered unusually direct statements through multiple channels, including messages relayed through intermediaries in the Gulf region and statements at international forums. The core message was this: Iran will not absorb strikes on its critical infrastructure without consequences, and those consequences will not be limited to tit-for-tat responses inside Iranian borders. Tehran made clear it views its deterrence posture as regional in scope, meaning any escalation against Iran will invite responses that affect the broader neighborhood, including key shipping lanes, allied proxies, and energy infrastructure belonging to other regional players. On the military level, Iran's response was both immediate and symbolic. Iranian naval forces conducted visible exercises in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz in the days following the strike. The Strait of Hormuz is arguably the single most important maritime choke point on the planet. Roughly 20% of all global oil trade passes through this narrow body of water, which at its most constricted point is only about 33 kilometers wide, Iran has long maintained that it possesses the capability to close or severely disrupt traffic through the strait in the event of a major conflict. And these exercises were a deliberate reminder of that capability. Iranian commanders spoke openly about the readiness of their forces and the range of their missile systems. Language that is carefully calibrated to register in the situation rooms of decision makers from Washington to Riyadh to Tel Aviv. What makes Iran's current posture particularly consequential is the broader strategic context in which this warning is being issued. Iran has spent the last several years methodically building what military analysts call its axis of resistance, a network of allied and proxy forces spread across the region that includes Hezbollah in Lebanon, various armed factions in Iraq, the Houthi movement in Yemen, and other groups in Syria and beyond. This network is not just a collection of ideological allies. It is a distributed military architecture designed to give Iran strategic depth and the ability to project power without directly exposing the Iranian homeland to retaliation. When Iran issues a warning after a strike like the one on Kharg Island, the warning is implicitly backed by this entire network, and that changes the risk calculus for anyone considering further escalatory action. The economic dimensions of this crisis deserve equal attention, because this is where the story connects most directly to the daily lives of ordinary people around the world. Global oil markets reacted immediately to news of the strike and Iran's subsequent posturing. Crude oil prices showed notable volatility as traders, and analysts attempted to assess the risk of sustained disruption to Persian Gulf energy flows. Iran produces millions of barrels of oil per day, and even a partial disruption to Kharg Island's export capacity would tighten an already constrained global market. Add to that the potential threat to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and you have a scenario that energy economists have consistently described as one of the highest impact risk events in global commodity markets. Higher oil prices mean higher fuel costs, which ripple through transportation, manufacturing, food supply chains, and virtually every other sector of the modern economy. But the story is not purely about oil and economics. It is also about the shifting architecture of deterrence in a region that has never fully stabilized since the American invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan fundamentally altered the regional balance of power. Iran's warning after the Kharg Island strike is partly a message to its immediate adversaries, but it is also a message to the United States, which maintains a significant military presence in the Gulf region through its naval forces and through its partnerships with Gulf Arab states. Tehran is signaling that it does not believe it can be struck with impunity, and that any actor, state or otherwise, that attempts to neutralize Iranian power will face a response calibrated to impose painful costs across the region. This matters enormously for American foreign policy, at a moment when Washington is already managing an extraordinarily complex set of global commitments, from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine to tensions in the Indo-Pacific to fragile diplomatic processes in multiple theaters. A serious escalation in the Persian Gulf is not something American strategists can absorb easily, particularly given its implications for allied states like Israel and Saudi Arabia, both of whom have their own complex and sometimes contradictory relationships with the current regional dynamic. The historical pattern with Iran is instructive here. Tehran has consistently demonstrated an ability to absorb tremendous external pressure, including crippling economic sanctions, assassinations of senior military and scientific figures, and covert sabotage operations targeting its nuclear and industrial programs. Iran has never simply collapsed under this pressure. Instead, it has adapted, dispersed its critical capabilities, expanded its proxy network, and continued advancing its strategic objectives. That resilience is not a reason to dismiss the severity of the current situation. It is actually a reason to take it more seriously, because it means Iran is not a power that can be deterred through pressure alone, and the warning being issued now comes from a government that genuinely believes it has the tools and the will to follow through. What happens next depends on a series of decisions being made right now in capitals across the region and beyond. If the parties involved choose a path of de-escalation, relying on back-channel diplomacy and quiet signals to reduce tension, the immediate crisis may stabilize without further dramatic developments. But the underlying structural tensions, the competition for regional influence, the unresolved questions over Iran's nuclear program, the deep mistrust between Tehran and its adversaries, none of those go away. They simply go back underground until the next spark ignites them again. If, on the other hand, the current trajectory continues toward further escalation, The world could be looking at a conflict with consequences that extend far beyond the Persian Gulf. What we are witnessing right now is not simply a regional military incident. It is a defining moment in a long-running contest for power, security, and influence in one of the world's most strategically vital regions, the strike on Kharg Island in Iran. Its response to it represents a significant shift in the tempo and intensity of that contest. And the warning Tehran has issued is one that the international community ignores at serious risk. This is a story that is still being written in real time, and how it ends will depend on the decisions, miscalculations, and moments of judgment or misjudgment made by leaders who are operating under enormous pressure with incomplete information. That is the nature of geopolitical crisis. It does not announce itself cleanly, it builds, and then suddenly everything changes. We will be watching every development closely and bringing you the most thorough and grounded analysis we can as the situation evolves. If you found this breakdown valuable, please share it with someone who needs to understand what is happening in the Gulf right now, because awareness matters and informed citizens make better decisions. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Iran will follow through on its warning? Do you believe the international community has the diplomatic tools to prevent further escalation? We read every comment, and your perspective genuinely shapes the conversations we have here on this channel. Like this video, subscribe if you have not already, and stay close, because in a world moving this fast, you cannot afford to look away. Sonnet 4.6 Extended.